if I'm thinking it or if I'm going through it,
Uh-huh.
other people are thinking it or have gone through it or will go through it or are going through it, right? So for me, part of that is learning to be vulnerable and be humble and be transparent. And I've always been okay at being transparent, right?
So powerful.
But what I found is the more vulnerable I'm willing to be and the more transparent I am, the more attractive I become to other people.
Wow, we're gonna never believe this. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Google. Go out there and listen to us. So we're excited about it. We're glad you're excited about it too.
Welcome everyone to Mentality Unleashed. This episode is gonna be a lot different because we have somebody, he's like my twin. Mike Harvey is my twin. And we go way back, dude. We go back
a couple years.
He was my junior high in high school. He was my high school leader. You're my youth leader.
So, I don't know if you want to admit that.
I do. So I know when Mike's around. I know when I have Mike's love only when he punches me.
I do it all the time.
It's a good rip shot
right?
too. He wants to do it now so bad.
Oh yeah.
But this is one of the reasons why I love doing this show is because I get to talk and hang out and really get to know in a different perspective and picture people that I grew up with. So this is one of the things that I'm really excited about. But also, I think it's good for the listeners to know that you're the man of all this. Mike's the man behind all this. This could not happen. This would not be around without you.
I guess you could say
without
that.
your genius.
I help a little bit.
I know you want to say it.
It's more my people do all the work, but I lead them, I guess. So.
Yeah. So Mike is the man behind all this magic. I'm not calling him Magic Mike.
Please don't.
But he's the man behind all this magic. And today we're going to discuss the process of how I got here. It wasn't some magic. You woke up. I'm going to be innovative in this part. It was way different. Your story is quite different.
Oh, yeah.
But again, we want to go back and cover, the whole point of this is how mentoring impacted our lives. How, our design for what we need to find our adventure. Are designed to make sure that, we're rescuing our beauty. Are designed to make sure that we're fighting our battles, fit in mentoring, and the story of now you're doing this. So let's backtrack, though.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to backtrack.
All right.
Your mentoring experience started early. How long ago?
Are you mentoring specifically? We're talking about Pastor Tom?
You know what? let's stick with that. I want to stick with that concept.
Okay.
When did your mentoring process first start with Tom?
Well, that's interesting because it depends on how far back you want to go. Because really, Tom was in my life from the time I was in high school, like early on.
right? Like both of us. Huh?
Right. So
it's been forever, man.
So we've been around each other, for a long time, and in sports and working out, and he just like he did with you, right? So a lot of mentorship there on a lighter level, and there was a time, and we've shared this even from the pulpit before, but he almost kicked me out of school for being a knucklehead. Yeah, you could probably relate to that. Yeah, we got a kinship there. Yeah, right. So. But that was part of it too, right? Yeah. Had to okay, who am I going to learn to become and not be this knucklehead kid? But really the real deep mentorship started, I remember a time back at CSUB days when we were running that campus of the church. And I had just had my first child. Or my wife had my first child, but I helped a little bit, for like 5 minutes, and then but I went to Tom around that time when he was newborn, and I was like, "Hey, Tom, will you mentor me?" But I was like, I'm not quite ready for it yet, but I want to be mentored by you specifically. And he said, yeah, of course I'll do that. Right? Like Tom always does. He always says yes to everything. And somehow he manages
attached,
to still do it all. Right?
Strings. There's a string. I need you to do this though.
Right, for sure. And anyway, so I said, well, it's gonna be a little bit, and I'll be ready. Well, that little bit I thought was gonna be a couple weeks, maybe a couple months, turned into a few years. Right? So fast forward a couple of years, and that's when the real deep discipleship began. It's just God's timing, right? Because I knew that there was a call there from a long time ago, but I'd felt that, God was saying, hey, this man is to mentor you. Well, I thought it was then, but it wasn't quite then. It was supposed to be, a little bit further into the future.
Yeah.
So it was that was pre-pandemic. After BC and AC, right?
I'm with you on that.
Or AP, I don't know,
It's
whatever.
Anyway,
you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, different world. But there was a time where my family and I actually moved to Texas, and then we moved back right afterwards.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, we did. A lot of people don't know that. We kind of kept it under wraps somewhat.
Yeah.
But
somewhat.
Yeah. But when we moved back, Tom had asked me, hey, do you want to come and check out this podcast thing? And I was like, yeah, cool, I'll do that. And we were always close, before, because we did ministry stuff together and everything, but we weren't that close like we are now, right? Yeah. So he said, do you want to come and watch this podcast thing? And little did I know his sinister plan of taking over our company and making it 511 Media Group.
No, let me ask this,
not
though.
really, but
before he asked you to be part of the podcast, how much experience did you have with that?
Well, I mean, I'd done tech and stuff for a long time.
You've always
right?
been in tech. I
right.
know you were in tech even when I was a kid. You're always good with that.
Right. So I helped the church and did different stuff there. We own the IT company for now close to 20 years. So I have had experience. I have my team knows the stuff, and
but you weren't podcasting yet.
I had started doing a little bit prior to that.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So it was just prior, but then he asked, and I was like, yeah, I'm jumping in. So
you went and saw the first podcast.
Yeah.
You enjoyed it so much, and then at that point, is that when he asked you?
Yeah, pretty much. He was like, hey, you ever thought about helping? And I was like, yeah, I'll help. Sure, let's do it.
And that's when your journey of helping out, but it wasn't just helping out.
Right.
You were also in a process with him.
Right.
You're also going to be mentored as well.
Right.
In terms of that.
And it wasn't like necessarily official. Like it wasn't like, okay, now we're starting a mentorship process, It was just kind of like evolved into that, right? And now we talk almost every day. So yeah.
So talk me through, because this is the crazy thing, Mike. Being in a podcast industry is not easy. There's a lot of people that are trying to do it.
Right.
It takes a lot of creativity. It takes a lot of innovation. And I feel like that's where you shine. Did you start off that way? Did you have that? Or what did it take?
Well, Tom and I kind of egg each other on, trying to push each other down the road, and sometimes he wins the arm wrestle battle, sometimes I win, but but he's always has an idea, and then basically I put it the other day. I put it this way. I said, the reason that we're doing well and being successful is because you just keep coming up with problems for me to solve, and I just keep figuring out how to solve them.
That is a brilliant relationship there. That is a beautiful relationship of problem solving produces creativity and innovation.
Yeah, exactly.
Which, I mean, and that is one of the definitions of creative and innovation is something new.
Yeah.
Because something's not working.
Well, I never really thought of myself as a creative guy per se, right? Because I'm not an artist. I'm not, I played a little bit of music, but I'm not gifted in that way of creativity. But when it comes to business and that kind of stuff, like I think God's blessed me with creativity in that regard.
And I think, one of the things I could say from you, and this is something we overlook a lot, is there's a different type of creativity.
Yeah.
And the creativity is, when there's a problem,
right,
you invite me.
Thinking outside the box.
And I'll get it done.
Yeah.
I will get it done by any means necessary.
Right. I don't know how, but I'll figure it out. So
that's where you gotta
create.
Well,
that's the entrepreneur ethos too, right?
Yeah.
It's like you want something? Yeah. Okay. Yes. The answer is yes. I'm going to sell you that. But I don't know how I'm going to do it. But yep, I can do it.
But there's an alternative to that.
Is it saying no?
And being having just a fixed mindset.
Right.
No. And what comes from that? No creation, no innovation. But talk to me about your mentoring process. How was that? Was that easy for you?
I've always had mentors in my life for a long time, different mentors, all the way back starting, my dad was one of my first mentors, right? Yeah. And then I've had Coach Bob was one of our mentors, you and me both, God, right?
Bro.
And then,
same people in our lives.
Right. And then I've had, several others along the way. And I've always, kind of prided myself in being very coachable. So if someone tells me to do something, I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to figure out I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to figure out how to do it. And I'm just going to, what if I have a mentor, they say, do something, this is going to lead you to success. All right. I just trust you. And that's my naivety at times, is being overly trusting, but generally it's worked out to be a good thing.
But I think that's a strength. I think that's one thing that our audience needs to know is one of the things about being mentored. You need to be attractive to want people to mentor you.
Yeah, my wife thinks I'm pretty attractive.
Hey, you know one of the things really attractive? You touched my leg. I gotta
There we go.
But you know what's really attractive for people who do the mentoring, and even for me, now that I'm doing the mentoring for you, is people who are go-getters.
Mm-hmm.
People who will listen. People who will be soldiers. People who, hey, I think this is a good idea for you to do this. That'll just get it done.
Yeah. Well, and the thing I've found, and I believe most mentors are this way. I know people that I work with that I mentor as well. I feel the same way. They want to invest in people that are actually going to take action and do the things that they're being told to do. Right?
Man, that is 100. You know, that's the reason why even for me, I don't like doing services for free.
Yeah.
I don't like doing it for free because I don't get as much effort.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get as much will.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get as much of that they're willing to lay as much as I am on the line.
Well, there's a saying in the business world, marketing world, those who pay attention.
Yeah, but that's exactly right. Well, I want to backtrack. So your mentoring process was a little easier, but that's because of that's because of the mindset that you have. Your mindset is like, if you're going to if I'm going to trust you to be a part of my life, I'm not going to just trust you with the way I think. I'm going to trust you with what I do.
Right.
So that's brilliant. I think that's something that we need to have. All of us need to have a little bit of that in us.
Well, and you're a psychologist, right? So you'll probably be able to explain this way better than I would. But when I started out young and I listened to mentors, and I had success and a good experience doing that, that just reinforced that, I should listen to mentors, right? Because other people maybe haven't had the same experience. They've had a bad experience. They're like more apprehensive and more withdrawn and scared to, invest in themselves and listen to their mentors, right?
Yeah. And what I would call that the trusting process.
Yeah.
You and I have been lucky. And that's why I know sometimes like I get negative about the church because some of the negative experiences I have, but all my life was there. So where else were my negative experiences going to be? Right. But on the flip side, the amount of great experiences of people like Tom why go out of your way? Why go out of your way and pour into me? Why go out of your way and make me feel like I belong? You know, and having those experiences have compounded to where, both of us are at. But talk to me a little more about your podcast experience. How was that for you guys to walk through that journey? Was it automatically wake up, hey, great, we did it, we set our goal, and we're here now, easy money?
No, anything but. We've had a lot of things along the way that have been challenging. Times we wanted to quit, times we almost did quit.
Talk to me about one of those experiences.
So one of the first ones was, I can't remember. I think it was in 2000, the end of 2021.
Okay.
If I remember.
So right after post. What we're going to call that, AD?
Yeah, it was right. It was November 2021, sometime in there. Tom and I took a trip to Las Vegas, and we had just done a what could be considered by some a controversial episode, and it was a time when we were still on the church's platform. And the church came to us, and Tom and I both tell a little bit different version of this story, but. They said, hey, listen, we don't want you to misrepresent the church, so we think that you should go on your own platform, right? We're like, okay, so we went from about 10,000 person audience overnight to 0.
Dang. What did it take for you to build? What does it take for a person to build a 10,000 person audience?
Well, I mean, for that church, then, they built that over 30, 40 years, right? So
that's a big loss.
Right. But since that time we bounced back and we're now at 25 plus.
But take us back to that when you first had that hit. How did that make you feel?
Well, we thought about it and we prayed about it. For half the trip we were discouraged, and then it was about Barstow. Something just kind of came over both Tom and I. We're like, you know what? I think we're supposed to continue. and we started encouraging each other.
So you guys, when you guys first got that contact, obviously it feels bad. You're like, oh man, I don't know how we're gonna recover, yada yada yada. And you're telling me by Barstow.
Yeah.
Where did you guys stop somewhere?
Yeah.
McDonald's?
I think it was Starbucks.
Yes, I've been to that one. Okay.
Yeah.
By that point, you guys already felt a different message.
Yeah. We felt like we were supposed to continue, and we did. And we went from, that next couple weeks, we sent an invite to all of our friends and everything. And I think we got it up to, between Tom and me and a few other people that were involved at the time, got it up to about 600.
Dang. So it took a few weeks just to get a few hundred.
Yeah, right.
Dang. So that's where your journey goes into now. Now it's being on your own, being innovative. So what was your creativity and innovation to get you from that 600 to where you're at now? Because it's only been a few years, right?
Right. Again, I think a lot of it's just maybe you could say being too dumb to quit.
Dude, I respect that so much.
Right?
Bro. I respect that so much.
But just pushing forward, doing a lot of social media stuff, building the team around that. Just having a don't quit attitude. And that's what it takes to really be an entrepreneur and be in business, is not quitting, not giving up, because you're always going to face adversity. And I think there was a time when I thought, well, I'll get past this. And then why do I keep hitting things? And like, why does things keep coming up? The truth is, there's always something.
Always.
It's just in how you react to it and how you respond to it, right? And it was a really good learning process to learn, well, there's always going to be roadblocks. There's always going to be things that don't go your way. Just kind of expect it. Hope for the best, prepare for the worst, right?
Yeah.
Another one of my mentors says that often.
Yeah.
In doing that, we just continued forward, and then we were like, well, we got to start making money doing this somehow. So there was some time that we started trying to figure this out, and then it went from that to now we are profitable, making money, and doing this, teaching it to other people, doing services. We're about to launch some e-commerce stuff.
So within those 3 years, not only did you regain followers, but you figured out a way how to make money on this, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, I hate you so much, man. That's brilliant, right? That takes so much creativity. Well,
sometimes the biggest blessing comes from having your back against the wall, right?
Yeah.
From like, I got to fight my way out of this paper bag. And if I don't, my family's not going to eat. We might go bankrupt or whatever. You get real creative and figure out how to make it work,
and I think that's one of the things I had to do with myself too, because I was in an industry. I'm in an industry. I'm in the mental health field, and as a psychologist, I kept on wondering, like, why am I getting all these hard cases? Why am I getting the hardest cases? What's happening? Oh my God! And just being dramatic, and I was having all these fears. I was always in stress, kind of feeling overwhelmed. The same thing. I just had to I had to really wake up and change my relationship with how I felt about problems.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, my job is, I actually need people. I need people to have problems, but I had to change my perspective and not seeing a problem as this thing that I can't get past, but more so as the thing that I'm here. It's right in front of me, and I got to figure out how to move either that problem or move past it.
Well, that is the thing, right? So I'm actually going through a training right now.
Okay.
We're talking about things that trigger us, things that kind of stand in our way, and maybe they're holding us back, or there are ceilings, or there are limits or limiting beliefs or whatever. How do we take those, look at them, and use those to be the catalyst to move forward and past it?
Which is what it should be.
Right.
That's the point.
So
problems.
if you can change your perception and your perspective around problems, then they become something exciting, because that's a new opportunity for growth.
Exactly. And I think, man, if there's anything that people can learn, is exactly that. Most psychological pain, which is, anxiety, sadness, all that stuff, it comes from here.
Yeah, right.
Right here, your perspective. Most of our psychological pain, most of the pain that people can't work is really in your perspective.
Right.
Once you flip your perspective, you know what the science has shown? Your brain actually produces more energy. Your brain produces more of those chemicals that you need. All right, man, Mike, you're a G, dog. I'm serious. I just can't say that enough. But take it back to you've built the successful industry. You've been the man of the reason why I'm even in front of you guys. But then on top of that, what I want to do is go back. When you asked Tom for mentorship, when you were asking that, how did all that affect you because what I care about is you as a husband and you as a father. How did that affect you at that point? Because you said your wife was pregnant?
Yeah, back then, yeah.
And she
She just had the first kid, so we had 2 more kids since then.
But then right after she had her first kid, that's when you joined up with Tom again, right?
So right after that was when I asked him originally to be a mentor, but I didn't know what the timing was when that was going to start.
So 2-3 years later, when you started that process, how did that affect you as a husband? How did that affect you as a father?
You know, I mean, it's definitely improved things, right? Because I have someone that I talk to on a very regular basis that understands and is real, right? And I think that's one of the most important things about a mentor is having someone valuable. Because I think a lot of times we look at, right, because you grew up as a PK in a pastor's home. Well, a lot of times people that are outside of that bubble look at pastors and they're like, well, they're on a pedestal, right? Yeah. Like they're perfect. And I think that also leads to some other things that affect them, but that's a whole nother issue, right? But when you have someone that can just be real and just be like, yeah, I things at home aren't perfect all the time, right? Not to say that, you know, Tom and Tiffany have a great relationship, but, you know, so they go,
still real,
they go through I mean, and you could say your parents do too, right? The same things that, you know, I fight with my wife. So do they.
They still have disagreements.
Right.
And those disagreements become big issues.
We still have some challenges with our kids at times, right?
Well, yeah, me and you are going to have a lot of
Right. But, you know, it's having somebody to talk to that's a sounding board that can be real and not just, well, I'm better than you or, you know, look down on you for things that we all go through, right?
Yeah. And I think so for you is having just another person around.
Yeah.
Having another person around to help guide you through those just real issues that everyone's going to have. Everyone's going to have it.
Yeah.
So it's helping you with that journey. How did the mentoring process and how did that help you find your purpose?
You know, that's something I talk about frequently. Finding your purpose or your calling. And this is my own personal belief about this, but I think that there's a few things around that. One, part of our calling is just doing what's in front of us right now, right?
And say it again. Say that again. It's brilliant.
Part of our calling is just doing what's in front of us right now, right? And as we live out life with passion and passionately in everything we do, then we will find our true passion, right? So that's one way of looking at it. One of the things that I say often is we don't necessarily find our calling finds us, right? So as we're continuing to live a life of purpose and a life of passion in whatever's in front of us and doing everything we can diligently and as unto the Lord, right? That was one of the things I'll share with you probably later, that my grandmother had actually said to me as a child is about doing everything diligently and as unto the Lord. And as you do those things, your calling reveals itself.
Wow. So you're saying something a little different than I think what I've kind of believed, and I think it's I like it better. What you're saying is it takes action.
Mm-hmm.
You know, your purpose, finding your purpose isn't like some angel from the sky is going to reveal himself to you herself and say, this is what you're going to do.
Right.
You're saying it starts with work.
Right.
What are the things in front of you? What are your responsibilities in front of you?
Right.
What are the things that you need to do now? Is it starting that class? Is it going to get that job? Well, do that. And then once you start doing that, don't just do it half, but
right.
Don't just do it kind of. Do it how?
100% all in.
100% diligently unto the Lord.
Yeah.
Right? I'm going to do it because the Creator.
Right.
When we start that, though, when you do what's in front of you, when you do it with all your heart, then at that point, that's when we start seeing the calling.
Yeah.
That's when we start
Yeah.
seeing what we should be doing.
Exactly. And it's funny because you said something earlier that for whatever reason it is for me, it triggers me, right? Not in a bad way. It just makes me think. You said we were lucky. I don't believe in luck. I believe in luck equals hard work plus preparation, right? But the other thing about it, I think we were fortunate, but I've shared this a few times. For me, God always expects us to work, right? Always. He always expects us to do our effort and do our part. If we're lazy, I mean, Proverbs talks a lot about the lazy man and how he doesn't eat and all this stuff, right? But I've seen in my life many times, God expects us to put in the effort, work diligently as unto the Lord and continue doing it. But then the blessings are coming over here when I'm working over here, right? Because God wants to know, okay, you're doing your part, but I also want you to know that the supplication, the provision is coming from me. Wow. So I want you to see that what you're doing is being blessed, but it's indirectly.
Wow. Dang, man. That is powerful. Well, because I think sometimes it's not easy doing what's right in front of you. It's not easy doing what you need to do. Personally, sometimes it's the thing that you want to do the last. It's the thing that, man, that's something I don't want to do at all. But the point being is you do what needs to be done. And when you do what needs to be done and you stay consistent with that, God's going to honor that. Mm-hmm. You know what? Not only is God going to honor that, people are going to honor that.
Yeah.
I think that's attracted to most people.
Right.
What would you say through this process? What would you say are some of your biggest battles that you had to fight, some of them maybe overcome or build strategies for?
For me, I think honestly, my own personal pride, that's probably the biggest one.
Well, how so though? How would that affect you in your journey? And
because I feel like people, and it's probably a projection, right? You're a psychologist again. I have this idea in my head about how other people perceive me. Okay. So I try to carry myself in such a way as how I expect them to perceive me, right? But that's pride and that's ego for me, because I'm if you study the DISC profiles, I'm a high D, right? Mm-hmm. Dominant person. I want to be accomplished. I want to be successful. I want to be in charge, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, when I think about how other people view me, unlike some people are like, oh, they look down on me or whatever. Like, I'm a little bit more egotistical than that. And I think other people think highly of me, so I want to carry myself in such a way to be viewed that way.
Yeah. How did you deal with that pride? Because I think most men are going to struggle with that. But how did you work on that?
By realizing a couple things. One, if I'm thinking it, or if I'm going through it, other people are thinking it or have gone through it or will go through it or are going through it, right? So for me, part of that is learning to be vulnerable and be humble and be transparent. And I've always been okay at being transparent, right?
So powerful.
But what I found is the more vulnerable I'm willing to be and the more transparent I am, the more attractive I become to other people.
You know why? Because that means you're being real. That's what real. You can't be real without being vulnerable.
Yeah.
You can't be real without being transparent. You can't be real without putting it out there. And honestly, I think that's where the strength comes from. What psychologists do say, what the studies do say, is when you put out your fears, when you put out your pride, when you put it out, you're transparent, it actually weakens the fears in itself. Mm-hmm. It actually gives you that strength. It actually gives you that power. So for you, one of your biggest battles was pride. One of your most difficult, what would say would be one of your most difficult moments with that?
Well, I don't know if I can remember a specific well, I guess it depends on how far you go back. But as a business owner, right, there's always valleys and peaks and valleys, right? All the time. We strive for more peaks than valleys, but there always just is, right? Yeah. And there's another thing. Well, again, there's probably stuff we'll talk about more off air, right? But called the Valley of Despair, and you have to get out of a cycle to reach the mountaintop. Anyway, the biggest thing for me is usually has had to do with the valleys, right? And low points in the business where I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to pay the payroll next week or next month or whatever. Damn, right?
Scary, dude. That's
it
scary,
is.
Man.
And I remember sharing, or it was fairly recently. You might have seen it. I shared a reel on social media talking about a time, I don't know how many years ago, when I was just afraid to tell my wife about a low point.
Wow.
And it was so low that I thought we were gonna be filing for bankruptcy then.
Wow.
Right? And so I told her, we were in our silver Lexus at the time, in front of Firestone Grill on a date night. I remember it perfectly vividly, and I just broke down crying because I was like, "Babe, I have to tell you, like I've tried to shelter you from this, but as husbands do, and sometimes I think it's our responsibility to do that, but we got to find the balance in that. Anyway, again, a different topic, but." I confessed, nothing infidelity or anything like that. Just like, like we're not where we need to be. And, I don't know what this looks like.
Wow.
And when I did that, she shared with me, I believe in you. I believe in us.
Wow.
We're going to make it. And we did.
Wow.
And, so being that, but that was something that I hid away because I didn't want anybody to think, well, Mike's not successful. He hasn't reached it. The reality is most people that have been in business for any length of time have been in that place. So they get it. Right. But that was the most, has been the most, watched, most engaged reel that I put out.
Wow.
Was about that because people value and hunger for that vulnerability.
They hunger for what's real.
Yeah.
Right? They hunger for people. You know what we hunger? To see people similar to our position.
Yeah.
Because we're all in valleys. We're all in peaks and lows.
Yeah.
Whether it's with career, whether it's with relationships, whether it's with our kids. There's peaks and lows with everything. And people just want to know what's real. And we know what we also want to know. And I think this is one thing that you've added value on to this episode. Is you added so much value of just having action, getting it done, actually working on your perspective. Because in your perspective, you can change so much. You can reduce instant pain, instant stress, just by altering your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only that, but then what you've added on is it's not just doesn't stop there. Being successful starts off of being reflective, starts off with knowing your peaks and valleys, knowing yourself. And if you do have pride, work on that transparency.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If there's anything else you can leave with our listeners, what would it be?
I think there's a couple things. So one of my core values is extreme ownership, right? You probably read the book, and if you haven't, you need to. But that's one of my core values personally and as well as in the business. And one of the things that I've always done is how can I be responsible for whatever happens?
I love that.
And that doesn't necessarily mean I'm in control because God's in control, but how can I take ownership and do something different next time or whatever? And part of that is for me, and I'm always working on this. I think, people have said often that entrepreneurship is the probably the biggest personal development program, the most expensive personal development program that you will ever go through.
100%.
And I've always made it a habit of working on myself since the beginning, and I'm still doing it. I'm still investing in becoming a better leader, a better husband, a better father, all of those things. And one of the things that I did was I spent a year in a group of people that were very different from me personality-wise.
Wow.
And I allowed them to speak into my life and tell me, where are my blind spots? What am I not seeing? Where am I being insensitive? Or where do I need to consider others or whatever?
You're taking this to mentorship and guidance to a whole nother level.
Right. Well, if you want to be successful in life, you have to,
Yeah.
right? You have to have good mentors, and you have to have good peers, and you have to have people in your life that are going to tell you the truth. But you also have to make it a point and a habit of working on yourself and becoming the next best version of you. And the Bible tells us to do this, right? But regardless of whether, you're listening and you're like, well, the Bible, I don't believe in the Bible or whatever. I hope you do, and I hope you learn that someday. But even that aside, it's the best thing we can do in life to be more fulfilled, to have a better family life, to have better financial life, to have a better health life, mentally, physically, and every other way.
I love it. Man, extreme ownership. If there's anything that I'm going to take away from that, is extreme ownership. Because you know why? then that means there's always something that I can grow from.
Absolutely.
That means there's something that I can always do in order to become just a little bit better, in order to improve myself a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
I love it. Well, thank you guys for joining us with my dog, Big Mike, the man behind this all, the magic. The man with all the magic. Thank you guys for joining us. Peace with some chicken grease.
Later.